We'd like to welcome, everyone here this evening to the Planning Village Commission meeting for August 19th, 2026, held at the ALC Auditorium of the West Jefferson School District Office Building at 1256 East, 1500 North, Territon, Idaho. And as we begin, we'd first like to begin with an introduction of our members here, staff.
John Sutton, building official.
Rural Record Operations Manager.
I'm Milton Allerton, planning administrator.
Kristen on the minutes.
Garrett board.
Or now it's involved. Michael Clark. Tom Berry board. Thank you. We'd like to begin our proceedings this evening with pledge of allegiance and they see it.
I pledge allegiance to the United States and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had the opportunity to review agenda and items on the agenda this evening? Does anyone have any had any extra communication or been conflict of interest related to any agenda item?
Yes. I did have a conversation, it was on the second hearing meeting process, so had a short conversation with the owner regarding this meeting, and also they informed me that they had to have a rather expensive alarm system put in, and because of the industrial use. And we subsequently, 3 days later, had our first false alarm on that system.
Okay. We can take that up when we get there. The meeting minutes of our previous meeting were disseminated to the board. Is anyone have a chance to review that? And so are there any changes or is it accepted?
The motion to accept.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the previous meeting held on July 15, 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll take just a moment to kind of go through our process this evening. And would ask that you understand that these proceedings are recorded, and also that every person who speaks needs to identify themselves and give us their address. We do ask that everyone turn off their cell phones and at least silence them so they don't create disturbances. Also ask that you don't talk among yourselves during testimony. Ask that you not shout comments or attempt to disagree with testimony, allow those who are speaking to provide the testimony uninterrupted. Ask that you not use profanity or vulgarity, and ask you to refrain from personal attacks or aggressive actions. And would like you to know that the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission are all volunteers. We take this responsibility very seriously. Sometimes we do tend to become a little bit lighthearted because a lot of things we undergo, but we do understand that these decisions affect the property in question for many years to come. We do our best to understand the issues and base decisions on the laws and ordinances of the state of Idaho and Jefferson County, of which we are required to apply accurately and objectively. Our goal is to promote land use that will be of the greatest benefit to our current and future populations. But we are not here to answer your questions, and nor are we permitted to do so. Our purpose is to hold the hearings to allow all who have related facts for consideration in the decision-making process to provide us with those facts. If there are those who wish to submit written testimony in lieu of coming forward, we do need to receive those prior to completion of the public testimony phase of each hearing. Then that written testimony will be read into the hearing record. All who have signed the roster will be invited to come forward at some point, providing verbal or written testimony. When it is your turn to provide verbal testimony, we ask them to come forward, speak clearly and directly to the microphone, and give us your name and address before providing testimony. You ask that you limit your testimony to 5 minutes. And you ask that testimony not be implicated. And that the testimony should be addressed to us as the commission and not to the audience. Prior to, or for each matter, the staff has prepared a package for us for our consideration. It has information, for example, regarding zoning laws and ordinances that are relevant to the matter. Staff uses whether the application conforms with those laws and ordinances, input from other agencies or departments. For example, if the property is in floodway, area of impact, or special areas or potential issues with the application. Then we offer the opportunity for the agent or the applicant. Is then offered time to present the matter before the commission. It is expected that they have read and understood the comprehensive plan, the state's local land use planning act, and applicable county ordinances. And that the presenter needs to show how they're conforms to both state and local laws. We may ask questions during the hearing relevant to that testimony. Then we accept testimony signed up from those signed up on the roster. At the completion of public testimony, the presenter will be granted time to respond and rebut specific points of testimony offered in the hearing, but may not introduce new testimony at that time. After the presenter's final remarks, public testimony matter is considered is closed and discussion and commission commences. If at some point we do need additional information, we may choose to open the public testimony portion of the hearing. It does require a motion to do that, and we do offer people opportunity to testify on that new information, but only on that new information. After all public testimony concludes, we deliberate on record and we render by vote one of the following possible decisions. Recommending that the Board of County Commissioners approve the application as submitted. Recommending the Board of County Commissioners approve the application with conditions, or recommending that the Board of County Commissioners deny the application submitted. In some cases, we do have the vote on it. In that case, we will vote to approve the application submitted, approve the application with conditions, or to deny the application is submitted. Often, I won't say often, but sometimes we do end up tabling the matter if we decide to need additional information or clarification, at which time, and then we determine at which time the hearing will be reopened. Sometimes we may decide to suspend or table a matter depending on to a later date, or we may tend to render a written decision. We thank you, and we do appreciate you coming this evening and participating in this process. And it is critically important to have the stakeholders involved in this process, and we welcome you. Thank you for coming this evening. The first item on the agenda this evening is a zone application, zone 26-006. John Cook is applying for zone map amendment for parcel RP06N 34E 2000056 from currently being split zone to Ag 10 and residential 1 to the all residential 1. Project is 66.28 acres in the portion of section 20 township 6 north, range 34 east of the Boise Meridian. We have a staff report.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So this is just an aerial overview of the property where the applicant is requesting to go from, currently it's split zone to Ag 10 and R1, and they're requesting to have a zone change for the whole property to be in R1. Additional information over the site, the current use for it is an agriculture use. The property is accessed off of north, 1100 east. It's not in the floodplain, and when it comes to water and sewage, that they are proposing to connect the Edmonton water and sewer system. As there are some houses that are in that area that are also connected to that system. And then the other services that are provided on this property is the West Jefferson Fire District, West Jefferson School District, and the Mud Lake water users for the irrigation. And then we're looking at surrounding properties, again, the site itself is zoned, Ag 10 and R1, and the current land use is agriculture. On the north end is where, the property is touching city limits, and also a mixture of R1. And then the east is again a mixture of Ag 10 and R1, with current uses being a mix of residential and agriculture use. To the south is Ag 10, primarily used for agriculture use. And then to the west of the property is primarily Ag 10 zone, yeah, agriculture use and some vacant lot space. And so this is the, both the comp plan is on the left hand side and the zoning is on the right hand side. And so the comp plan map, this just shows, what the county has determined for future land use for this particular property, and that tan color is representing the residential land use designation. And then for the zoning, again, it's, as mentioned, on that north side, north half of the property, that's in that bright yellow, that's the R1 zoning, and then the green is the Ag 10 zoning. And so when looking at applicable code for this particular application, we're looking at the public hearing code, just to make sure we're noticing this application properly goes to state statute standards and our county standards. When we're looking at criteria to recommend approval or denial for this application, we're looking at 112-57 for our amendments code. And then we're also looking at the purpose statement for residential 1 zone, which is section 112-203. And then we're also looking at the Jefferson County comprehensive plan. And so ultimately, for a zone map amendment application, the documents that we require for it for review is we're looking at a detailed site map showing existing improvements, utilities, and any other observations within the public area. Looking for a narrative statement that describes whether or not the meeting comprehensive plan and addressing any potential impacts among the surrounding properties. And then providing a legal description of the property as if it were to get approved, then we would adopt that as an ordinance to then change the zoning of that property. And then we also ask for a vicinity map, just to show that property and the surrounding properties we're looking at current land use. And so all that information was provided by the applicant, so we did have a complete application in order to review and then present it to the commissioners. So then when we are reviewing this application, we look at 4 items in order to determine if it is meeting the county code. And those 4 items are if it's meeting the comprehensive plans, goals, and policies, if the proposed zone districts regulations, including its purpose statement, if that zone can meet that purpose statement, compatibility with the surrounding area and uses, and that there's no unreasonable adverse impact on delivery of public services. And the way that this application is determined by the commission is it'd be a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So the decision that the commissioner will make tonight isn't a final decision, it's a recommendation to the board. So the purpose statement for R1 zoning is that it's intended for single family residential development. Specific dimensional standards, minimum lot size setbacks are set by section 112-203. And other additional information regarding R1 zoning is that the county likes to see that zoning be within areas of impact for cities. And as we'll see later when staff reviews the 4 criteria that this property is located within the city of Mud Lake's area of impact. And then one thing to mention is there may be, what the applicant had provided was a mention of potential future lots or future development. So while that may be included with an application. It's not considered during a zone map amendment, decision. As any type of development or further subdividing would require separate applications and separate standards to be reviewed by to ensure that they're meeting all the county standards. So at this time, we just focus on the zoning itself and not any potential future land or any potential development. So when staff looked at the first criteria, so again, the request is in accordance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Staff had provided both, a case both for the application and against it, just to provide that unbiased, viewpoint for the application. So in cases where, the application was meeting the comp plan, is that a portion is already zoned as R1. And so the idea of the zone change would be to, remove the split zoning of the property and to make it be one full, one zone of R1, which does match the comprehensive plan map as residential land use designation. And the application is consistent with policy 8.2, which does suggest having higher density development in areas of city impact. And also policy 5.1, given the proximity to that lake. And then in cases where it's not meeting, is that there are a few policies referring to protecting ag land. So since primarily this property is used for ag purposes, that is something to note that, if, you know, a portion of it is worth to be developed as residential use, that would be taking away some ag land. For criteria 2, where the request is in accordance with the regulations and purpose statement for that particular zone. And so, that a 66-acre parcel would be able to, match the zone for R1 as our residential 1 is 1 acre size minimum lots. So would it be, conflicting with the zoning size? And again, as mentioned, that a portion of it is already zoned R1. And so, this request would just be making the full property be R1 zoning versus being split zone. And then again, mentioned that any future subdivision would be subject to chapter 110, which is our subdivision code. In cases where the criteria is not being met for this criteria, is that there was no review site or engineering plan to demonstrate that the lots would meet R1 lot size. But again, where that isn't necessary to consider for this application, that is, I guess, kind of the hard criteria to say where it's not being met. For criteria 3, where the zone change would not, wouldn't conflict with surrounding area uses. So with the potential for R1, you'd be creating 1 acre size lots. Surrounding this parcel on the east and northern side is where you are able to see smaller lot sizes, either 1 acre or smaller, as it does border, the city limits, so you're likely to see smaller city size lots versus county size lots. And then this criteria would be consistent with policy 8.7, where it's compatible to avoid, compatible use to avoid landowner conflicts. As it's the potential to create 1 acre size lots wouldn't show incompatibility with the current 1 acre size lots that are nearby. Criteria where this, or a case where the criteria may not be met, the criteria 3 is that, while there are some R1 size lots, there isn't a large proportion of it. And so where this parcel is 66 acres, if it were to be developed out, it would create that potential to create 66 lots. But again, that would go through a further process to where it would have to show the meat code in order to develop that far, that many lots at one time. But not that we've seen a parcel that large be developed out that far at one time. And then, where we didn't receive any comments for this, agency or public comments for this application. Even though that we didn't receive any, that doesn't mean that people may not be for it or against it. It's just, an acknowledgement that we didn't receive any comments at the time the staff report was generated. And then for the last criteria, the zone change shall not result in any unreasonable impact on delivery of public services. So this property is located off a county road, so in order to, if any development were to occur, they have access off of the county road. And then they do have electric service available from Rocky Mountain Power. And that they also, since they are proposing that water and sewer for the property, that they do have that ability to hook up to water and sewer from the city. And then, additionally, just reiterating that no agencies have provided any comment for this publication. So there wasn't, at least anything received where agencies have concern for this, zone change proposal. And in a case where the criteria may not be met for this one is that the applicant didn't show any improvements or show what improvements were done on the property, but being that it's being used for our purposes was a pivot, but that would be the improvements that have been done at that time is just using that pivot to likely with a well and power to run that pivot or run that pivot, sorry. And then again, just reiterating that while we didn't receive any comment from agencies, it doesn't mean that it's assumed that they're okay with it, but we're just able to review it with the information that we're provided. So this is just reiterating the notice was sent. It was sent on Friday, July 17th, so a little over 28 days prior to the public hearing that both the agencies had time to provide comment as well as the public. They were sent notice, or it was sent out via mail on that day, so about a week or so later is when residents would have received this letter. And so overall, staff recommends approval for this application, as it does show, at least based on how staff reviewed it, that it does show to meet all 4 criteria in order for the property to go from split zone R1 Ag 10 to R1. And then these are just the ending recommended decisions by the commission if they were to recommend approval or for the application. And that is all.
Thank you. Do we have someone here to present?
I've got some questions if possible.
Sorry, no, actually we can in our process,
Okay,
but hopefully we can answer them as we go through the hearing process.
yes. I'm president, I have to keep water and sewer, it's fine.
Good evening. You need to press the button on the bottom of the base there to turn on your microphone.
Now you're both doing it at the same time.
Oh,
You have to hold it for the first one.
Justin,
Oh, there it is. All right, you're.
My name is John. This is my wife Shelley Hope. Our address is 1050 East, 1500 North, Jefferson, Idaho, 83450. Okay, so we've taken this corner of the pivot. My intention is to continue to farm the area under the pivot. The area that I want to develop is the southwest corner of that pivot, approximately 11 acres. My intent is to sell probably maybe maximum of 7 lots, possibly 8. I don't think that it would be 8, but have a couple people that are interested in 2 to 2.5 acres each. And, the objective would be to have these, larger lot sizes so that, if they wanted to have a horse or something, of that nature, that will be fine. There will be, covenants, so to speak, for, that, no, mobile homes or any type of, that any type of, dwelling, it would be a foundation, stick home. And, the access, to the road, county road there, would be as, typical entrance, along that road, from Zach Bear property to the corner of, what is it? Is that 1100? Yeah, 1100 and Highway 33. So. Water and sewer is, yet to be determined. My conversation with Ted Goodyear, who was the manager, was referred to, Tom Wheeler, who was here. And, so the dwelling will either be connected to the L&T sewer system, or they will be, wells drilled, or, possibly a community well, and then, separate sewer, systems, for the county regulation. Access to power is, is acceptable on a road via the power line that was on the west side of 1100. I just recently moved, a pump and, for the pivot over to that area, and never encountered any, issues with the, Rocky Mountain Power. So that's I guess, the objective. Is there any questions?
When you talk about, the southwest corner, are you gonna talk about, developing all 4 corners of the circle, or just the southwest corner?
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's
The southeast corner, my mistake.
Okay. That's why I just, a little clarification on that, because it's 7 lots don't fit in that back. Well, there's other corners of the circle, so I just wanted to clarify that.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That's what we break. Yeah, it works for the bond, I guess.
Right. Sign up to speak in favor at Tom Wheeler. Oh, no, sorry, I have no one signed up, to speak in favor. Does anyone wish to speak in favor? Signed up to speak neutral, Tom Wheeler.
My name is Tom Wheeler, President M&T Sewer and Water, 1461 North, 1425 East New Jersey. I tried to speak because I wasn't sure what was going on in the neighborhood. Since this is just to change the residential and not to actually allow subdivisions or high density housing, whatever, I don't have any adverse comments on it. If it was to go high density housing and the project wouldn't pay for the upgrades to the water and sewer system that are required or provide the water right for it, would that be an issue on the zoning change? Mr. Clark, I don't think you can answer that.
Well, actually, I can within limits, and this, just for the benefit of everyone here. Your assessment is correct, this right here, this meeting tonight is for the changing of the zone.
Okay.
However, things that are brought forward do play into those considerations, but to quickly answer your question. Anything going forward would require additional variance approvals, the building permit and even the layout and design of a proposed development, all would come back before the county.
And I have no further comments, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. I have no one signed up to speak in opposition. Anything you want to rebut? No. We'll go ahead and close the testimony portion of the hearing this evening for discussion from the commission. Maybe just as we begin, again, just a reminder that the matter we are hearing is for the zone change. And so the consideration is what in the proposal and then also looking at what potential uses are of the property, is it appropriate and does the location support that? So any conversation, discussion?
Yeah, a question, Stan? Is there any other way to split the property without having the R1 zone take over all?
I guess theoretically, the applicant could split the property where it's currently split zone. I guess though where the applicants wanting to provide their future development would be in that Act 10 zoning, so I think that's the reasoning for wanting to have the full property be zoned at R1 versus it staying as that split zone.
So Commissioner, we didn't get here without a couple conversations with the applicant. And we did talk about, and originally we did discuss, the challenge is I think that the number of units he wanted to put in would have probably more likely required suburban neighborhood. And that really wasn't the best option. And so, this gives him the option to, if he wants to further divide it in the future. He at least maintains the 1 acre character of the surrounding area. I mean, with it being in the area of impact and with access to sewer and water, we could easily justify suburban neighborhood. So, yeah,
No, I understand that,
yeah.
but it's just R1 opens the door for a lot of development.
It does,
It does.
and I don't know what the demand is like up this way. So, yeah,
I'm not speculating.
right, right, so.
Understand. My original question, and whether it was using the clustering permit or whatever, is that like, rather than have a zone change, was there a way to split it so that, there was a remedy without the zone change?
And that's a good question. The Ag 10, so the cluster's limited in the Ag 10 to 3 lots. And in R5 as well for 3 lots. So once you get into Act 20, then it's a little more limited, but. Right. Then you're dealing with 20-acre density, right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
May I make a comment?
No, sorry. Um. Oh, well, I just had another question for you, Bill. What, you mentioned that the city of Bud Lake did not respond. What does the area of impact agreement look like? Is there? What kind of provisions are in it? I apologize for not reviewing it.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything specified in it, I mean. It would be odd to find it.
I mean, the reason I ask is because any proposed development would fall under whatever negotiated, things that we have in play, and there may be something in there too that might, address some of the concerns. Yeah.
I am the city clerk for the city of Mud Lake. May I speak?
You know what, there's a way, I mean, I would accept a motion to suspend.
Yeah.
I would make most.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to suspend the rules, to allow additional testimony to be entered. Yes, please go forward.
My name is Mary Blackwell. I am Mud Lake City Clerk Treasurer. I live at 1244 East, 1500 North in America. As far as the impact zone, it is a mile radius around the city limits. The Copes did come to a city council meeting prior to the beginning of all of this procedures, and the council approved that they could go ahead and talk with the planning and zoning with the county to change it to R1. So. Okay, does that answer your question?
It does, actually. Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Black?
No.
Thank you very much.
Make motion to pick up this.
Been moved and seconded to reinstate the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Continuing discussion.
So basically, it's the guts of it is about 4 pages, and I think that, the fact that they went to the city and had the city. We can agree with them to move forward with this is. Meets way beyond what this code says, right? This basically says that we should communicate with the city, they already did, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so we send notice, which is what we do, and, yeah. Which is what this says, all applications, shall be made to the county, both with communication with city officials.
okay. So either way, anything that will be coming forward in the future with respect to potential development, it is going to be in cooperation with the city, so.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and again, right, the Mud Lake Territory Watershed District.
Yeah. Additional discussion.
So on this property, it would, and I guess this is a staff question. On this property, as far as irrigating 1 acre lots or potentially 2.5 to 3 acre lots per state rules of this year, that can't be done, is that correct?
So for state statute, it's if you're creating 5 or more lots, then that subdivision would have to utilize irrigation water in order to water the lawn. They couldn't use their well water to do so. So depending on when, if we were to get a future subdivision application for this property, it would have to be that state statute.
We're ready to make a motion. Based on the finding of fact and that the applicant went ahead and spoke with the city, we haven't had a bunch of testimony against this zoning. I feel like it's appropriate, and my motion is to recommend approval of the zone map amendment, zone 26-0006.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval to the county commissioners of zone 26-006. Any additional discussion before vote, or anything you want to add to the facts and finding?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna add 112-203. Just the residential zone, one zone.
I would list the rezone criteria. It meets, it does 112-68. 124. 3 is arguable. You know, I still believe, and even with the comprehensive plan, I still believe that we need to protect farm ground in policy 812, and we need to do that. However, it does seem to be the criteria for the rezone. In 112-60.
Well, and I might add to that too, though, in this particular case where it is in the city area of impact. And actually, almost all of the ground in the city area of impact is probably reasonable farm ground. You know, I mean, we balance the needs of housing as opposed to even the agricultural needs, but thank you. Any other input? Been moved and seconded to recommend approval to the county board of county commissioners for application zone 26-0006. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is conditional use permit, CUP 26-0003. Robert David Ball requesting a conditional use permit for a light industrial manufacturing use for both private and customer meat processing. The requested use will be utilizing staff that is being built located on parcel R2007N 36E 13002. Property is 421.58 acres located out in east 2100 north in the Ag 40 zone and a portion of section 13, township 7 north, range 36 east, Poison Meridian. Staff report.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So we're looking at the area of the property, property is highlighted in yellow, and then the focus on where this use is asking to be proposed is in the upper, the northwest corner of this property, and that is highlighted in that blue triangle. And then this is the zoning and comprehensive plan map. In the zoning side, it's zone Ag 40 with, that's in that lighter green, and then that slightly darker green shade is Ag 20 zone. And then on the right hand side is the comprehensive plan map, and it is zone, or it is designated as agriculture. And then that is the agriculture is that green color, and then the tan color is residential land use designation. And then I do apologize, but the site plan was upside down, so if you can imagine this little corner is turned right side round. Basically, what it's showing is that there's a shop on the property, along with a septic and a well, and then the fainter image is kind of a more detailed site plan that does add, where there's parking and where the kill floor is for the, livestock that they process through the meat processing facility. And then this is just another, image of that property, again, just indicating that triangle. This one also, I apologize, it's not north facing, so it is on the bottom left of the corner is where there's a little triangle indicating that that's where the shop is located. So I guess to kind of just give a little bit of backstory on, this conditions permit application. The applicant had applied for a shop permit, back in 24. And as we were getting close to the final, for issuing the CO, our inspectors had noticed that the type of equipment that they had in the shop looked to be as if they were processing meat. And so looking at our land use table, as I'll later describe as, that particular type of use does require a conditional use permit. And so that is why the applicants have applied for the conditional use permit, and then requesting approval for that today. And so the zoning code, or the codes that we used to look at over this application, again, is the public hearings to ensure that we're noticing these types of applications in the proper manner. We also look at the conditional use permit code, where there's 7 criteria that we look at for determining if it is meeting code in order for approval. And then the specific type of use that we reviewed this under, and this was under the guidance of the Board of County Commissioners as well, is the light industrial manufacturing use. And then ultimately is looking at the comprehensive plan as conditions permit applications have to be comprehensive plan as well. A bit more further information with the background of the property. So the shop is accessed off of the county road, East 2100 North. The property is not in the floodplain, and the services for the property is it has an individual well and septic, and the agency districts would be the Hammer Fire District and then the West Jefferson School District. So we're looking at surrounding properties. It is worth noting that most of the surrounding properties are owned by the applicant. There, I believe, were 2 or 3 other property owners that were not the applicant themselves. And so looking at the surrounding properties, the site as mentioned is zoned Ag 40, and the current use is agriculture use. To the north is also Ag 40 with agriculture use. The east is Ag 40 agriculture use. To the south, Ag 40 agriculture use. And then to the west is where you have a mixture of agriculture / residential use, and it is a mixture of Ag 40 and Ag 20 zoning. So on Monday, June 22nd, we did take the consideration on how to review this application under the guise of light industrial manufacturing, and the light industrial manufacturing use is mentions where manufacturing production that occurs primarily indoors. And so that was the reason we brought it before the board, is that they would consider accepting that this type of review of this application would be acceptable. And so they did approve that type of
Interpretation.
yes, that type of interpretation for the meat processing facility. And so the first criteria is that the applicable procedural requirements have been met. And so ultimately what we ask for a conditional use permit application is we ask that they provide a letter essentially identifying the potential impacts for their use that they're wanting to propose. That they provide a site plan to show all the proposed use that they would like to have on the property. And then any additional information, and one of those was we had asked if they would be able to reach out to public health as with processing meat. that could bring into question how the waste is being handled. And at the time of the application, when talking with the applicant, they had mentioned reaching out to public health. But we haven't received any update information. So if the applicant will be able to provide potentially more information on that, during their introduction, that would be appreciated. And so, for showing that the criterion is met, is they did provide everything that we asked for a general checklist of what's needed for conditional use permit. And then, in cases where the criterion isn't met, is that just some of that narrative statement was lacking in addressing some of those impacts where we had asked for that further information from public health. So for criteria 2, when looking at, criteria 2 is a proposal complies with the applicable standards, of that use. So again, this was reviewed from the, interpretation of a light industrial manufacturing, and so criteria for the case to meet it, as it does show that, based on the way that the shop was, or yeah, the way that the structure was built, that it would show that all of their processing would occur indoors, nothing would occur outdoors, to our knowledge. And so that's how we could show a case for it meeting that criteria. In case where it couldn't meet that criteria is just again, not really going too much into detail on how to handle the waste, other than providing an option to turn it into like a fertilizer with the blood from the livestock. For criteria 3, that the proposal is compatible with conditions with the surrounding properties and surrounding properties. And so for where criteria is meeting is that the surrounding properties are being currently used for ag purposes, and the applicant owns the surrounding properties. And so, since we hadn't received any comments at the time this staff report was made from the public, that could be a case for how it's meeting that criteria. Where it may not be meeting is just that potential with the impact of odors that may occur from a meat processing facility. And so that could be added as a potential condition from the commissioners if they would deem that additional conditions may be needed to address some of those impacts. For criteria 4, that the proposal adequately addresses site constraints, negative environmental, social, and economic impacts. So the case where it's meeting that criteria is that they did provide a mitigation plan for the odor and flies. They did reference another facility that they had seen, where, as I mentioned before, is that they are able to turn the waste into a type of fertilizer that they can then use. And then part of this, we did receive an agency comment from DEQ, and I'll go into further about that as we get closer to the agency section, as they did have some items that they had considered for conditions for this application. And then where this criteria isn't met is, other than that one mitigation comment, that there could be a potential for other impacts for mitigations that the commission may bring up or have identified that may need to be added in order to address those impacts. And then criteria 5 is that service and facilities for the proposal are available. So where this criteria is being met is that they do have well septic and power, and they do have access to be able to access the county road. And then where the criteria may not be met is just again mentioning that just that potential public health DEQ impact. And then for criteria 6 that the proposal will meet the duly adopted requirements. I'll go further into that with the agency comment as they do more fitting during that portion. But depending on if the applicant can meet the EQ's comments or any other impacts that may be addressed, then that could be, depending on whether or not this application will be meeting criteria 6. And then the last criteria is that the proposal is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. And so they said it's in the, agriculture land use designation. That process of meat does fall under an ag use, especially where it's a small scale, that the applicant is processing their own livestock. And potential neighbors where they're processing their meat and giving it back to that person and not selling it for commercial use. And so that those items, those items just show how it can meet the comprehensive plan for ag use. Where it may not meet that criteria is, is the interpretation of where it can be considered ag use or industrial use, just with the nature of the meat processing facility. So these are the comments that DEQ had provided. We did receive on July 21st. We had sent notice July 17th to the surrounding agencies that may provide comment for this particular impact. And we had only received a comment from DEQ. And so they provided, we summarized their comments to 4 impacts that they would like to at least have addressed. So that they had asked the owner operator to determine air quality and, for air quality permitting applicability for all fuel burning equipment. As if there was no equipment capacity info provided, they recommend having a written solid waste management plan and a written acceptance agreement for non-hazardous municipal solid waste. They have asked that if the water system regulates there's 25+ people a day, that it must meet the DEQ standards for a public water system. And that they do ask that the water system or the wastewater system must meet the DEQ standards and be appropriately permitted before use. And then at the time that there was no other agency comments, the DEQ was the one who had provided comments, sorry. And so then overall staff had, based on the criteria to recommend approval, just that it is a primarily private use where it's just the applicants taking their own animals that they process and then occasionally take some neighboring animals that they process and then return it back to that person. And that it's that it falls under an ag use in terms of, a property owner being able to process their own animals for use. And how that could be agreeable to the comprehensive plan. And then while there were some questions from DEQ, that those conditions were added to the staff's recommended list of conditions in order to address some of those impacts of the meat processing facility. And then this application is a final decision, so the commission would either motion to approve or motion to deny. This wouldn't go on to the Board of County Commissioners. And then these are just the conditions that staff had recommended adding, is that all county setbacks shall be met, all building, plumbing, electrical code shall be met. And then addressing those DEQ comments. And then what's standard for conditional use permits is that they are reviewed on an annual basis. And that's all.
Thank you. Do we have somebody here to present?
Is it all?
It's on now, yep, in green light.
Yeah, well, 2583, 100 North Hamer, Idaho. I'm the applicant. She, I read the 23 pages, so she's condensed somewhat, and she started on another one, I thought. Anyway, I'm just here to answer any questions.
Okay,
Some of those items, there's not gonna ever be 25 people there, the water quality, that's not applicable. We applied for the sewer permits and had to, you know, we had all that done through the county before they decided it needed to be commercial. So I don't know where if that didn't show up in the deal. Any other questions?
Yeah, great. I just going through the detailed letter and. On the one portion, you know, it says you'll be farm killed. Does that mean? The animal's gonna be killed and cleaned somewhere else and then brought to you to be wrapped?
We're killing them there.
You're gonna kill them on site? Okay. Leads me to my next question.
Right now, it's not enclosed, you kill them outside, but.
Right, I understand and I know, and I've read about, you know, read through the detailed report that you have, you know, you've or to kill for wherever. You know, just having questions and concerns about the killing there, you know, is. Number one is the blood disposal. And number two is the offall, you know, the parts that aren't used. You know, I understand that as I read through it, that you were going to,
Compost it.
yeah, the compost method, and I understand, and I don't see a problem with that if it's done properly, because they do it at the landfill. There's windrows,
Yeah, I know how they do it there,
you know,
we visited a slaughter facility that's composted there, and they kill a lot.
okay,
For 20 years,
right,
we went up and visited that spot. And it's in Oregon, and it's warm, and it did stink a little, you know, compost smells, but the fly problem, I called him back and I says, I forgot to ask you where's the flies, and he says, well, you mix that straw with it, that keeps the flies from
right.
passing. That's my point of reference, you know.
I understand that, I do, and I've seen a couple of trials from the University of Wyoming, they talk about using the compost. You know, as long as it's 2 feet deep underneath and there's 2 or 3 feet over the top, there's no odor, there's no flies, there's no problem with any neighbors anywhere, right? You know,
Well, this guy was living within like a quarter mile of his big compost pile, and his wife, after 15 years there, they moved a little farther away from when they.
so they moved a little part of it, okay, I understand that, you know, I mean,
And we're in the middle of the field, we've got a mile everywhere, but they need homes in the nation.
right,
That's why we chose that spot.
okay, so is the plan with the off-wall is to compost it, and the plan with the blood is to do what?
Put it in the compost too.
You're still gonna compost it in there, okay,
We have a separate blood tank. We collect that, and that was part of the sewer permits when we started. They said it would cost us $200,000 to do a sewer system that will handle blood. I said, our other butchers that have been killing our stuff have a separate blood tank, and they pump it out, and
just pump it out on.
they call their county.
Okay.
We cleaned it out once and put it in on top of the, you know, the compost, and it soaks right in.
Okay. You know, because that's maybe the concern with the endeavors such as these is the odors. You know, I mean, that's what happened in Idaho Falls.
Yeah,
And different story, different situation, but it was the problem, was the odor. You know, and I realize that I know where you live. And you're close to it, and I know there's some other people that are close to it as well. So that's my question, you know, it's on composting, you're up to speed on it. And then you'll be able to.
we'll have to see how that goes in the winter time, you know. We may have to take it to the landfill.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So just to clarify, the kill floor that you have for Great Channel, it will be closed. Okay, then where is the compost pile gonna be in relation to the building?
Right now, it's in the, south, well, on the map there,
Do you have the upside down?
Yeah.
it's not the plan, it's all on that other map.
Okay, so it's ways
Go
from.
back to the other map.
Oh, okay.
The circle over,
Right, here's, we've been composting there for years.
Okay,
They came and spread a bunch of that last week.
oh,
We can continue doing it there. We had composted here. Some, that we used, we have this corner here where we could compost off, so right now. We've been putting it right there. Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure, please.
This has been an experience. We appreciate these people in the office that have helped us through our ignorance and not knowing all the dang paperwork.
Thank you.
And yeah. Anyway, yep, we created more for it too. Yeah, definitely. When it went commercial, more fees. More problems, agents, I don't know if you, anyway. You guys have this stuff all the time, more power to you.
They like being told. They do a good job. They made it. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak in favor, neutral, or against anything you want to rebut. Oh, please.
I just asked a question, no, like that.
You know what? Yeah, well.
I may not answer it if you ask.
My name is Paul Burrington, I live 2583 East 2100 North. Anyway, I'm partners with them in it, but my question is, can it ever turn from, what do you call it? Conditional permit or whatever, can it ever turn to like, we don't have to be on conditional, like, we're just in good standing?
That's probably a question I would look at Milton.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would really be dependent. The reason for the requirement for the conditional use permit is really just to establish how you operate. And so a number of different zones, it still might require conditional use permit. So your question, how would you, I mean, forgive me for paraphrasing, how would I get out and have be under a conditional use permit? It would probably require zone changes and other types of things that would drive you there, which probably would be more difficult and problematic.
So I just don't want to
Even
be
though
conditional, like,
yeah.
run a business.
And even then, even depending on the zones, it still may require it. But it may have different regulations and constraints on it.
So it would require a zone change to industrial, which would be very unlikely because it's not planned for that up here to be industrial. So that is the benefit of the conditional use permit. The only annoyance is that once a year you would get a letter in the mail saying, hey, are you guys still in business? And you send it back and say, yeah, we're still here. So, yeah, I mean, if they're, if all of a sudden, 400 homes pop up around you, there might be a problem with the conditional use permit, but I don't think these guys are gonna let that happen.
Thank you.
I don't think they'll let that happen.
Anything you want to rebut?
Any other questions? Some of those non-compliant like smoke or emissions. We don't have any, in a year, if we're not compliant within a year.
It'll come up again if we have a problem with older flashing way up or down.
Okay.
That would depend on your English.
Someone already had this, they talk fast enough to you if there's a problem.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna talk to you, not to us. If the state has a problem with something, they're gonna call you.
They would.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing testimony portion of the hearing and open it up for discussion from the commission.
What are typical conditions for something like this? I mean, just a review, is there somewhere that says,
Yes.
okay,
Well, let me show you what was recommended.
okay. I mean, I was gonna say, if there's, a year, if there's just a,
There's some common conditions.
oh,
Yeah.
what section is that?
I don't know what it's in.
The conditions are in that. So, 25, it's just a big amplification over time. Well, mostly just like these, right?
And. Question to staff. What did East Idaho only count saying not to septic, the name, and how big is the system?
Going based off the building permit, they have it listed as a commercial. We don't have, at least to my knowledge, I can speak on this, we don't have the final, the final for the septic permit, we just have their permit that we haven't had for the building permit. With all permits and operations.
So you don't have. Right.
I think it's just whatever a standard commercial septic tank would be for, I just don't know that number off the top of my head. Is the.
I guess the reason I asked that is that this will use quite a lot of water. From cleanup,
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that, I mean, an average house is gonna be some neighborhood of 300 gallons, I dare say this is gonna be more than that.
right, yeah, and I think that's usually what commercial septic permits are rated for is. They're depending on just whether higher or lower, but that would be something that public health would permit for that.
We can actually address that though, even in conditional.
No,
Conditions, why?
I do understand.
Basically, we require that, they need written confirmation,
But I was just curious as to if they had already
done that.
sent a letter as to what size of system it needed to be. And I know there's conditions about that.
Yeah, I mean, up on end here, based on the information that we've been given and what's there. And then, looking at the overall, view. The distance to nearest neighbors is reasonable, but, it was pointed out to me though, that in the mornings, they do get a northeast wind, which would carry it potentially closer to the town side of Hamer. And, just for consideration, but again, it sounds like there are plans in place and they can be monitored and whatnot to address any of those, and if it becomes a problem, then you can worry about dictation on it, so.
Well, to go along with that, we're not talking about full commercial kill plan either. You know, if we're talking, I think it said anything over 25 requires, more stringent regulation from DEQ and USDA. So we're talking for a smaller operation, so that may not be an issue anyways. I like where the distance from everybody else, and it's a great place for an operation like this versus being next to that subdivision with 400 homes.
Right, and I mean, I think that likewise, I mean, I think it's a benefit to the community. It's, I mean, just for the case, I think it is definitely a benefit to the community, and that plays into it as well. Other discussion?
I think another advantage. For us is there's a lot of agencies watching over this. You know, there's a lot of regulations that we don't understand that they're gonna have to abide by. Talked about DEQs, and water quality, so public health. So I think the nice thing is a lot of the concerns we would have are already, there's already regulations in place.
Any other comment, discussion?
Let me ask you a question, maybe probably staff. What is confirmation of skill registration? Not clear with that.
They don't have the state citizen scale.
If they were,
Oh,
if they
that's
were, yeah, if it were retail commercial. Sale, it would be their measuring equipment would have to be monitored by the.
So not
Wait,
scale of
yeah.
operation, but the
No,
physical.
like a weight.
The way,
In this case where it's not being sold, I don't know if that requirement still holds or not. I don't think it does.
that's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
The retail sales and
Yeah.
all the inspectors and scales.
Then you have to go weights and measures.
Yes.
So it's one of the recommended conditional approval that sounds like.
Well, and yeah, we can offer that to do what makes sense to the application.
Right. The state came to check the scale, this week.
Okay, well, either way, sounds like it's okay.
I thought it was in all the paperwork,
It may happen. It's,
We have a little
But it's all right.
I mean, it's, we're okay. So. Additional discussion. Have a motion?
I'll move to approve conditional use permit 26-0003. To include the conditions that are stated. And based on the criteria that's listed.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded as maker of the motion. I assume you're referring to the conditions in the staff report.
That is correct.
I mean, might tailor that basically to reflect the ones that are applicable based on the size of the operation. It's been moved and seconded to approve. In this case, we are the approving body. Permit conditional to approve conditional use permit 26-003. With the accompanying conditions as I mentioned. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And and if you don't like the way I did this, I learned how to do this from your brother Carl, so.
Well, I know he went to a lot of meetings for a lot of years, and this is one of the second louder to come to. I will never take the money. Well, always,
I just had a comment, it's really, it doesn't have anything to do with what I need to this. But, Warren pointed out, what I felt like was a good point with the housing development. And you just kind of blew him off, I feel like, rather than giving it the proper discussion that was due with looking into whether or not there was a better way to do it. It feels more like you just went with the easiest way. While I'm not well versed in this, I feel like as a community member, it should, every avenue deserves its fair share.
Good. Thank you.
But that's all I had to say. I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but
No, you're fine.
No, we appreciate it. Like I said, that's why we.
Oh, here. All right,
did you want any more information on the fire stuff?
On what?
The fire stuff? We did have a meeting with the fire. Not,
with which one?
yeah, so fire,
Oh, it's Central Fire, yeah, I understand that.
we did, and, yeah.
No, and I guess that refers back to my declaration of the export that, you know, that they were required to have a fire alarm installed that rings directly to the Jefferson County dispatcher, of which 2 or 3 days later, we had our first false alarm. And, you know, we finally figured out if this is real or not, you know, and Jefferson County's up, jumping up and down. Meanwhile, we go get the trucks, and yeah, we're there. And it was caused because of a scheduled power outage with Rockland Power. So, and I didn't realize at the time that with the commercial industrial use, that would be a requirement.
Yeah.
Of and it sounded like it was a rather expensive system anyway, you know, and. Most generally, we have, I think the school has a fire alarm that we're ringing to the. Jefferson County dispatcher, and that's it.
Okay.
You know, and so. Yeah, the way this thing has been. Classified, there was obviously. There's a step up in what you have to do. Being in business.
Okay. I mean, it's good information that I can look forward as well, so.
But as you said, Milton, what did Jefferson Central say? I was curious about that.
They said that there's basically different types of codes that can come across those systems. I haven't physically seen them, but the way they explained it was when the code comes across, it should be, like for something like that, it shouldn't be as severe as a code, like there is a fire in the building, more of like a maintenance type of code. And I don't know if they did, but after our conversation, they said that they would reach out to the Hammer Fire Department and kind of go over how they use these systems and manage the different code types and things like that.
Yes, they did. And it wasn't a very good conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. That's as far as I'm gonna go on that, but I'm just gonna tell you that there are certain businesses over there in Central District that do continually have false alarms. And I didn't like their answer for how they handled it, but at any rate, it still happens. It does. So anyway, appreciate it. Here.
I don't know, but we touch base again to give you that. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Next item on the agenda, is administrative what do we call it there? We'll say, Jefferson County is requesting a text amendment for chapters 110 subdivisions and 112 zoning to address various changes, including the original parts of the land, new state surface water requirements, connection with municipality requirements, and section 112 requiring canal company approval of setback closer to canal when updating the setback codes. May include updating the definition of the structure. AM 26-0007. Go ahead, staff report.
Yeah. Well, I don't recall that last sentence, anyhow. So, again, we continue to have challenges with the code as we, as we work with folks. This original parcel of land, is one of those codes that, like the cluster and like the private road ordinance, more like the private road ordinance, just has been ignored over the years. And so we created situations where, the intent of the original parcel of land was that a piece of property could not, be further divided if it had already been divided a number of times. And so the problem is that none of that was in the track. Nobody ever kept a record of, so, somebody will come in and say, hey, I have this farm and I want to cut the corners off. And then we look at the property and there's 3 other parcels already on that property. And then we deep dive it and we go back and, some were created before 2008, some were created after 2008. And there's just no record that on the property that had ever been, that there was ever a limitation. So the request is to just remove that term original parcel of land. From the code, it's the only place that it really mentions it is in the notice of land division, and in the definitions. So the intent there is just to remove that term and definition. That means that as we continue to build our record, which we're doing a really good job at, right? We record every application approval that comes in. And when we do a notice of land division, we identify the number of land divisions that are left on the property and we record that against that property. So, yeah, that's what that is about. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah, I think that's. We have no this section. This is the 112 RC. This chair is sucking.
Who didn't freaking put the padded ones up here?
But if you look, they have business there.
So we'll hurry and get that.
Yes, that's.
That's what we decided, Michael.
Yeah, it's getting close, so you better hurry.
We just need a motion to.
That came from the vice chair, by the way.
Yeah, well, at any rate, so you're just gonna
So that's,
delete that.
yeah, that's the original, and then we added in the new requirements for state statute for surface water irrigation rights.
So what does it actually say?
So any land division that results in 5 or more lots that's filed after July 1st of 25 is required to provide surface water rights. And that individual wells shall not be used for purposes outside the home. I mean, it's basically straight out of state statute.
So what if I say, oh, I'm just gonna do a 5-1? And then another company, I'm gonna do another 5-1.
No, it's 5 or more. So the state.
So 4. So what if I do 4 and then in a few years I'm gonna do another 4?
Yeah, so there's a code in the subdivision
And
code.
each one can have its own private drive.
It says that you cannot use the other land divisions to avoid the subdivision code. Says that you can't skirt that law.
Really?
Mhm.
Type of it.
In the subdivision code, it says that, yeah. And we have these discussions often with the attorney's office, so.
Yeah. Hey, they got smart about that a few years ago.
Yeah, then we added that, for subdivisions within the area of impact, or municipal water provider. If they're within 300 feet, they have to connect to those lines of a sewer or water line. And then if they are within 750 feet. Of those lines, they have to do a feasibility study requirement by an engineer.
And that's still going back up to the subdivision, right?
Yes, that's still back to a subdivision, that's correct. Yep. Yeah, that's the feasibility study requirement.
Where did the 300 feet come from?
State statute.
Oh. We can't make that, 500 feet.
Try to consider it personally and see if that's really what you wanna do.
I was just wondering.
Go home and tell your husband that, hey, we have within 500 feet, we have to look at it, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a cost attached to it and these are painful discussions to have.
Oh,
So, what we,
be horrible.
huh?
City of Rigby is horrible for that, what they want. They're gonna got sewage.
$10,000 hookup fee now.
Yeah.
They just up to $6,000 for water.
Did they think they?
They did a study, an engineering study that told them how much it would cost.
That's City of Rigby,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
$16,000 to hook up sewer and water.
Yep. That's correct.
And you have to provide a.
That's outside the city limits. Inside, it's like, I don't know, 6 and 3.
Everything, my whole everything else.
How much is it inside?
It's like 6 and 3.
Yeah.
But it's really worth
They
it.
have to.
It's really worth a tour of the sewer treatment plant. It's really worth it to go and walk through that facility and see what they've designed out there and see it operate.
So it doesn't work now.
Oh, yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
So did it really increase the capacity or not?
it did. They're probably using, if they would get rid of their infill, you know, the infiltration, then they would be using about 25%.
Okay.
Yeah, capacity. So they only have one pod running when we were there the other day. And
They could hook up.
they said that they could, they said that Bob Evans produce place produces as much water as the entire city would be.
Doesn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the whiskey distillery wanted to hook up to them, but they said,
Have a whiskey distillery.
yeah, it's out on 3100 or something like that.
One out there in Grant,
Yeah,
that's vodka.
well, right, to me, it's all the same.
That's my road.
Down the road.
Oh, there you go. Is that your role or your road?
Well, okay.
Okay,
A question. Why are you changing it from non-habitable structures?
okay, so let me explain. So, again, we're just dealing with the past and the past is just really painful.
Yeah.
And so we got a phone call one day from a canal company saying, hey, these guys are building the house too close to the canal. The basement was 13 feet from the edge of the canal. And so we went out and looked and what we learned was that it was a drainage ditch off the canal, but it was still in the canal system, right? And so everybody should have caught it, right? The buyer, the seller, and then everybody. And nobody did, and so fortunately we caught it at the whole digging phase. In the whole drilling phase, and and it's all these small lots, it's out in Pepperwood, they're 3rd-acre lots. There's no room for a 60-foot setback from the edge of a canal and 65 setback from the center line of the road for a 3rd-acre parcel to build a house. And so we either bring you a ton of variances because it affects Pepperwood, it affects Teton Heights, it affects Elk Meadows out of the Ryrie area. All of these subdivisions were approved back in the day with no setback requirements from canals. And so by taking out the term non-habitable, it allows us to have the applicant go to the canal company and get sign off to build a structure, residential or non-residential, closer than 60 feet from the edge of the canal. That way the canal company can look at it and say, you know, are you building a basement? Right, and so, in order to be, to expedite this, that was the easiest path forward. And, I did meet with the county commissioners and discuss this with them because I was getting some feedback from the attorney's office that they wanted to completely rewrite all this stuff. And you saw what they did to the variance code. And so I just said, can we just do this more? It's 13 pages long. It is. It is. And so, that's what we're doing is this one where we'll probably go back at some point and look at revisit this in further depth, but for now. That's what this is. All the other red in here is just making these two documents look the same, this for residential and commercial. So that's what this is. All the same red.
So that puts the pressure on the canal company to be good guy or bad guy.
Well, but you know, when I first got here, the board said, hey, go change this setback. And so we went and changed it to a 30-foot setback when we ran it through P and Z. When we showed up, it was awesome. We had a great meeting. We go to the board and the entire room is full and, there were these things with my name on it, but no, I'm just kidding.
Circle going.
Yeah, something. And so, the board kind of backed off that really quick and said, no, we don't want to change the setbacks. And so we didn't change it. And what it's left us with is, these problems that occasionally arise, and they arise because several reasons. One is that not every canal is registered with the state. Not every canal is formally organized or organized well enough to receive information. So we've missed a couple. We've had to then just kind of keep growing and say sorry, some we've been able to catch and shut down. But the course solution one was the storage unit where we granted a variance. Worship will make over granted variance. But that's another one where, is that a habitable structure or not habitable structure? And so those commercial buildings, they come in with a letter from the canal company and they argue that it's a non-habitable structure. But yeah, we have an attorney.
Okay, so I understand that, but it's like, some of the feedback I received from one particular canal company is that nobody on the canal is obeying the setbacks. They can't get down the damn canal to maintain the canal because they're putting up fences and gates and buildings and whatever else next to the canal. It's just like.
So that's the part that the attorney wants to address is all of that stuff. Because that was, when we went out to this property and looked at this canal and this basement that was, 13 feet. We looked down the canal and there are fence lines all the way up against the edge of the canal.
Right.
And the canal looked at us and said, are you gonna go after these guys? Well, it's not considered a structure in the code unless it's over 7 feet high. And so, no, we're not gonna go after them. So it puts that burden on the canal.
But I thought the state law said the canal company can do everything to do to access their easement.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it does, when you go look at what went on in the drive bed and all those guys, we got so upset when they took out the favorite tree. But simply put, the law says they can,
Yes,
they can do it, and I mean, I find it interesting, because when I built. I mean, there was no question, I'm 75 feet off that flipping canal, everything I put in, and the county was out there verifying it, and I'm arguing with them over what's the high water mark, and so I'm curious as to, I mean, did the problem occur at the subdivision stage, or is it a problem at the building permit stage? Or are they putting stuff in without a permit?
no, with Pepperwood, it was a combination of all of it, right? Because we didn't mark the setbacks, and we didn't mark the canals on the plats. So when you look at the subdivision plat, it doesn't show a canal. And when you look at the map, it really didn't show that that was a canal. It just looks like a ditch, because it doesn't, it's not full, it doesn't run. Because it's a drainage ditch. It's the drainage off the South Rudy where it comes down and then turns and goes over to the Harrison. And so that's why that got missed. I mean, it was, like I said, everybody missed it, even the developer. And there are some houses there that are 25 feet from the edge of the canal. Yeah, everybody missed it.
Yeah.
And that subdivision's been there for a while. So, in order to try to address that, the easiest fix for the short term was to take care of the non-habitable. The fencing and stuff, yeah, if we start getting into that, it just. We just, it's gonna be a longer document.
We just ran the tractor down the side of the ditch once a year, everything there got run over, but.
Well, that's probably just fine. I mean, the 60-foot setback is 120-foot wide swath. Where every canal is every other mile.
Yeah.
That's a lot of land.
Yeah.
The canal companies are just as important to railroads, and don't have it, right?
No, and I know there's reason to keep away from like the water table, right?
There's,
Close to the basement is, but I like that we're giving an opportunity for a reason. Let's go talk to the canal companies. There are always some spots where there's a dry bed, where maybe there's a reason to have such a wide swath, because there's a lot of stuff involved, right? Then there's some of these, well-maintained canals that have the 2-track on each side, and they don't need that extra 40 feet. They're taken away from, the land could be used. We're creating a whole bunch of unusable land, so I like that it's more flexible, but we can talk to the company and see what's really needed.
it does, it gives a place for that conversation to occur, right?
Yeah, I like that.
So those are the changes. This time.
So we're recommending approval for this, or we approved?
Well, actually,
Where's your public hearing?
yeah, and it's, sorry, yeah. Which is what, is everybody signed up?
Everybody signed up for papers?
Nobody signed up.
Nobody signed up, speak in favor, neutral, or in opposition.
And we have nobody in the waiting room online.
Therefore, we will close the public hearing portion of this matter and begin deliberations from the commission.
This is recommending.
It's a recommendation.
Yeah, they may feel it's sweet.
Anybody have any concerns with the language?
There's 3 people.
I do think the canal setback in is slippery slope. Just because I feel that. Instead of the county covering that liability, now you're putting on those canal companies.
Not really, we're asking them to be involved in the conversation.
And I like that part,
Sorry, yeah.
but ultimately you're saying you need that letter from the canal company.
If they apply for a variance, they need it anyway, right? They need it, and then they need to come to you and get beat up again. Right?
So basically, without the list from the canal company, they can't do this.
That is correct.
That's
Right, and I mean, basically, that just ensures that the canal company has actually looked at.
The ultimate say.
What about ditches? I mean, does that,
they just do not.
but they still have that,
They have those rights, but.
they have that easement and that right of access
They do.
along it, and I mean.
And yeah,
It just, I mean, it's a little more vague because it says I have right of access. Right, if I need to run up that ditch with my tractor, I can go either side of that thing, right?
Well, I think we ran into it a couple times before, everybody thinks it's a ditch and actually it's the canal.
Right.
Yeah, so you gotta pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, even the bird just drops down to the ditch side by the time you get over the other side of Brandon.
Right. But it's still the canal. I mean, we ran.
And there's still a 75-foot setback off.
Right.
Yeah,
I.
okay. Other comment, motion? Any changes we want?
I mean, for reference, you know, Bonneville County is setback from the edge of the canal is 25 feet.
Enough
For anything.
Yeah.
Building.
enough for an excavator to drive down and no dump truck behind it.
Yeah, and like I said, we tried to go down that route, but didn't know
Even putting it at 25 didn't work.
Nope.
Well, then, you know, and certainly this is gonna, if they can't do anything without the canal company's blessing, then they're just not gonna get anything done.
Yeah. I think that's like my only concern is big enough companies are just gonna say no to.
Well,
They don't say no to everything, because we're required for non-residential structures right now. So if you're gonna build a shop next to the canal, you have to have a note from, a letter from the canal company, and we do get those. But then they have an APU after they get that. Yeah.
Or that's what that law meant.
Yeah.
Well, right, I get it. So, but by and large, I mean, it's like, when you talk to these, the guys that are presidents of the canal company, whatever, you know, their main drive is what everybody does, you know, and they're building. How people are putting fences in the middle of the bank, you know, there's no way to get a tractor or a cat down there without taking that fence out, and they're standing there guarding them again, whatever, you know what I mean, so.
That doesn't matter what size setback you put, people are still gonna they're gonna do.
They are, and especially in the subdivisions, because they are down to one acre. Or
Smaller, yeah.
and you know, and they are going to, they're gonna test it, there's no doubt.
I mean, you look at the canals, they're good. I mean, that's some pretty sexy yards against those canals.
Yeah.
I mean, those folks are sitting out there in their picnic tables under these massive trees. That the only way they would be that massive is if they had that water, right? Willows and cottonwoods and, yep.
Now, one of the other things that we are working on is under our new terms and conditions that we're working on right now for the building permits. Is there's items put in there that are information to bring them to their attention. For these people that are moving in from out of the area, specifically talking about some of the things with canals and ditches. It's not that we're regulating it, but it's to bring it to their attention that there's state laws that are governing these things, et cetera.
That's 116 pages.
That's just the building data groups.
I
know.
You know what's sad is,
The other document part is 232 pages.
so we just put a building permit in to submit one. And it took us almost 2 days to find the name of the ditch. We're trying to put on the application,
Yeah.
that's not a comment against the application process. We're saying there's water all over the place, so it's good to pay attention to it.
There's 62 some odd canal companies in Cantrip,
Wow.
And if it's not listed on there, make sure it'll burn also you can add it to the list.
It was, what was it, like, prohibition ditch.
Real big crowd.
One guy used it about a quarter mile away, it's the only guy on.
Yeah.
But it's like snake, it's putting through all the weeds.
Yeah. Wow.
It's prohibition. Yeah, I like it, one ditch.
Okay,
Thanks.
do I have a motion or additional comment? Because we're approaching fast. The threshold here.
Yeah.
What are you all afraid of?
We need to find the switch on our fan.
No, I'm getting tired of this freaking chair. And as my vice chair said, when that threshold's met, we're leaving. Yeah, I wanna get done.
Okay.
No, I'm not afraid of the dark.
The dark, only on the light though.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
You're in territory.
Make a motion, we recommend approval to these text changes that staff has made for section 112.263. All subsections as well as 11061-B. And then 110-92, which takes statute. Or 110 and 127. And any other that I may have missed on this,
Only
section.
AM 2607.
Okay,
Yeah,
they fall under AM 2607.
yeah.
Everything in there.
Very good. I'll second it.
Then moving seconded to recommend approval of AM 26-007 as constituted amongst the commission here. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda. This is a review, not a hearing.
That's pretty cool.
That's what I thought. Good.
So this will be short and sweet, because I would recommend that the commissioners would table this to a later date. As I just heard word from the applicant just today that they wanted to change the plat. So what is provided tonight is likely to change. So in terms of reviewing it, it wouldn't benefit providing a recommendation if they're gonna be changing the plat here short, so.
Yeah, we'll make a motion, we do not.
I'll
Or
second it.
hear the short file application.
We did set the date and time certain. They can help on this, not the one.
It's administrative.
Yeah, this one here, this one is just for review.
Oh,
So
Yeah, this is-
we have to, we don't have to postpone it, it's certain, it's not here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be.
It's okay.
I will second it.
Okay, what was the motion?
I think it was a motion to not review.
The motion was to not review the short file application.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to not redo the short plat application sub 26-0008.
I have seconded it.
And been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Seconded it.
Yeah.
You have anything else? I make a motion.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn on your favor.
Aye.
You opposed? Okay, motion opposed.
Really want to?
As,
Yeah, really. He's got things to say.
as the nay vote.
Oh, no, he has the floor.
On that floor.
I just wanted you all to get.
It's been a long time since we've had a walk, man.
You know, yeah, you'll see.
I'd say this is really nice,
They do like, they like that stuff. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about full transparency, man. That's full transparency.
Who's on the other side of it?
You have to look yourself in the eye.
Is that like a? Is that like a?
I'm gonna move and that's good.
I'm not gonna tell you what the. There's an exercise.
Yeah, it's exercise, church.
That's.
I'm not awesome.
I know that's what it costs.
I like how they have.
That's not a two-way here.
Yes.
It's not a two-way.
It's just.
Oh, that would be a little lot.
Yeah, down there, just close it.
Well, this is.
No, he said you had the floor, I have not, there's meeting is adjourned and I have not ended.
Listen, I'm gonna listen.
I'm done, I made
They made a motion to adjourn.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know, but he said since you have made, you have the floor, he did not say adjourn.
I am through with the floor.
I need something from the chair or the vice chair, the meeting is adjourned and I will be glad to, thank you, sir.